Welcome on in. Happy Saturday morning to you, Dbacks fans. Dbacks Dispatch here with your hosts, Brett, Brandon, and Gabe. Here with a little bit of an emergency pod that I don't know about you fellas or about anybody listening in the chat. I was not expecting to wake up to this news. I rolled over like 7:30 and I was like, kind of wake. Let's see if there's anything going on. See what the homies have texted me, and then I see like multiple things about Corbin Burnes. Like our group chat was blown up. Multiple people hitting me up on like outside of like some of my friends that usually only talk to me whenever the D-backs make a move. And oh boy, I was not expecting. I was thinking like, oh, Jordan Montgomery's traded. Maybe the D-backs signed like a bullpen guy. Maybe they finally got the back end of their situation over there settled. But no, the D-backs end up snagging the top free agent pitcher or starting pitcher left on the market. They signed Corbin Burnes, 30-year-old, to a 6-year, $210 million deal, just barely breaking Zach Greinke's franchise record of $206.5 million, signed back in 2016. So this is the most expensive contract that Mike Hazen has given out, because that was under, I believe, the old regime before he took over. There is an opt-out after 2026. So 2 years into the deal, Corbin Burnes, if he so chooses, he can opt out to hit the open market again. And if his numbers trend the way they've been trending since 2020, there's a strong chance he does that, because since 2020, and this is a tweet that I think Brandon has a graphic of here. I want to make sure the person gets the proper credit. Running from the ops, since 2020, Corbin Burnes is first in ERA with 2.88, first in WHIP 102, first in hard hit percentage 32.3, first in Sierra 3.31, first in strikeout percentage, second in fielding independent pitching at 301, first in barrel percentage at 5.5, and second in exit velocity at 86.7. So just really solid numbers overall. And I even did see a few reactions that brought up some good points, that he does have a little bit of a downtick in some of his strikeout numbers. But some of his actual, velocity on his sinker was still touching like 97. He's still doing pretty solid with some of his other peripherals, so I'm not worried about it at all. I'm excited. This is insane. The D-backs have another stacked rotation. There's like 7 guys that could potentially be starting here. So, fellas, I want to open it up to you. And again, anybody in chat, which, by the way, if this is your guys' first time here in the D-backs Dispatch chat, welcome. First off, we appreciate you guys stopping by. If you guys can like, comment, subscribe, it really does help the algorithm and all that. It really does push us into a bunch of other people's eyes. Make sure you check out the Discord as well, because the Discord was popping when all this news went off. And you can get all of your thoughts in there, especially any questions you guys might have regarding Corbin Burnes, or even any other like non-Corbin Burnes related topics. And then also make sure you guys go check out AZ Snake Pit. Make an account over there, because they do have a discussion thread and a article talking about Corbin Burnes, so you guys can also get your thoughts in over there. But gentlemen, Gabe, Brandon, I want to pass it on to you guys. What were your initial thoughts and reactions, whether waking up or, like in Brandon's case, being up when the news dropped? Because I went to sleep like 30 minutes before
I couldn't go back to sleep. I couldn't.
So, Gabe, what were your initial thoughts to the D-backs snagging this huge fish in the open market?
Yeah, so I was asleep like 30 minutes before this. I was just exhausted, and I took a Benadryl to sleep, so I was out completely. So I had no idea until I woke up this morning. Like, my dog woke me up, and I looked at the messages. I was like, why is there like 16 unread messages? Like, someone died? Like, what happened? And then I looked, and it was Corbin Burnes, and I'm like, is this confirmed? Is this double confirmed? This isn't some, NBA Centel crap or something. And luckily, yeah, it was, actual news that the D-backs got Corbin Burnes. And of course, I was freaking out. Just had to tell everybody, like, oh my God, we got Corbin Burnes. What are we doing? Like, World Series champs, baby. And yeah, so after that, I just, I woke up at 6 and I was just wanting to go back to sleep, but I just couldn't. I'm like, I'm way too excited. I'm way too pumped up to go back to sleep. So that was my initial reaction. And then, after some time, I started calming down. I'm like, all right, so what does this mean? Like, is Montgomery gone? What are we going to do with Gallen's contract next year, Kelly? And then I saw it was a 2-year option after 2 years. And I think that's the main key here, is just the fact that he has an option after 2 years. Like, if he wins a Cy Young, if he wins even an MVP, he's going to make $45 million after that. He's going to get Garrett Cole money after that. And he's only 30. But now I'm curious about the rest of the guys, like who's getting moved up, who's getting sent down, who's getting moved on from. So there's a lot of questions here again. Like we're excited, but I think it's time to think about like, all right, so what's this rotation going to look like? What is this team going to do? But credit to Ken Kendrick, he ended up spending the money that we didn't think he would. There's a lot of people saying that he wouldn't keep spending because of the Montgomery contract, and maybe they have a deal in place for him or someone else, some higher paid guy. Hopefully not, but um, it's exciting. The main thing that we had talked about during the offseason was just like get these guys under control now, because we don't want it to be February 10th and we still don't have certain guys on this roster that we desperately need. And so now we have Corbin, and he has about 45 to 50 days or so to get ready and for spring training, spend time with his wife or whatever, and his new kids, and
2 new kids.
Yeah, get back into shape. Don't come, to spring training 40 pounds overweight like Montgomery did last year. So I'm glad they got him signed and got him ready to go.
Yeah, you bring up some good points that we'll touch a little bit more on. Obviously, like what does this mean for guys like Jordan Montgomery, the possibilities of bringing back Zach Allen. But I think the thing that you pointed out there, the end of he's still got plenty of time. It's not like the Jordan Montgomery deal where they're signing him almost like mid-February to where almost the end of February, borderline when the season's starting. So he's not even going to get to spring training. He's going to get plenty of time in spring training. And actually, make sure he's in the best shape possible, which not like he wasn't in the best shape. Corbin Burnes has been one of the best pitchers in the last few years, as mentioned before. But it was kind of interesting. There was some reports that apparently teams like the San Francisco Giants and the Toronto Blue Jays did offer him more money, and I would assume more years to go along with it. But because Corbin Burnes lives in Scottsdale, and I imagine as you guys were mentioning his, 2 newborns, it probably incentivized him a little bit to, want to be able to stay around. He doesn't have to worry about traveling anymore or as much. He can actually be, around his kids and his wife probably more than he would have been if he would have had to go to, Toronto or San Francisco. So it is an interesting little nugget in there that I was like, oh, cool. The D-backs are actually a preferred destination over some teams. Wow, that's not what I expected. But yeah, so I'll have to definitely eat crow on the Ken Kendrick being a Scrooge and not spending money, because he definitely proved us wrong. He definitely and the funny thing is this wasn't a move made after the new year, like we talked about in like 2 shows ago, where most of what Hazen does is post New Year. So they got some news done before we went into 2025. But Brandon, I want to pass it on to you. Again, kind of same thing to you. What were your initial thoughts, reactions with the D-backs making Corbin Burnes a Diamondback?
So initially, the news was broke by Jon Heyman, and I was like, I don't know if this is true. So I waited a little bit. Then I saw Jeff Passan tweet it, and at that point, I'm like, okay, this is legit. This is true. And I'm like, what? Corbin Burnes?
To Jon Heyman's credit, he is a Boris propagandist. So
true. If there's any
but wasn't Jon Heyman said the one that Aaron Judge was going to the Giants? So that's why I'm always like, I'm gonna wait for someone, like if it's just him that breaks the news. I'm always like, I'd rather see like someone else like Passan or Rosenthal, or just more people post the news before I actually believe it. I'm so hyped right now. And it's great because both of you have to eat crow, because both of you were very like, what are we doing? Like, we are waiting too long. And I said, be patient, y'all. Be patient. Like, I was like, it's a long off season. We've made a lot of moves just like within the last like 2 weeks with Naylor and then Corbin Burnes. Like, this is huge. And I don't think this affects Gallen whatsoever. I think, to me, this actually makes me feel better that they might re-sign him. Like Rickety Brick was asking, does this mean we're trading Gallen? No. Doesn't mean that we're trading Montgomery, though. I always thought that they were, but this just pretty much confirms it for me that Montgomery's gone. Like, there's no way that they're going to keep him. Like, Corbin Burnes, and then like Gabe said, the whole opt-out thing to me was like the biggest thing. I'm like, So it's really a 2-year deal, really. Like, if you really think about it, because he's probably going to opt out. If he continues on the path that he's been on since 2020, like, he literally has gotten better every year. This time, he doesn't have to worry about the Diamondbacks knocking him out of the playoffs, because that's what happened back in 23. And the thing is, that game against the Diamondbacks in the wild card, he pitched okay. He didn't pitch amazing. And then Brewers traded him because they knew they weren't going to re-sign him, so they wanted to get something back. This just, like, to me, I think Mike Hazen has decided, we know we can't compete bat-wise and offensive-wise and buying these players with deferrals like the Dodgers. So we're going to go and we're going to do run prevention.
Well,
so we're going to
every team can do it. Didn't you see Jeff Passan slobbering over the Dodgers?
I don't give two, like, this might be a hot take. MLB will not allow any other team but the Dodgers to do it, because no one else has the backing that the Dodgers ownership does, where they're going to have the money in 10 years to pay these deferrals. So many other teams, their money changes year to year. Also, no other team has the TV deal that the Dodgers. Like, the Dodgers, just from their TV deal every year, gets like $250 million. So that right there, like, so, yeah, Cruz, you can come after me all you want, saying I'm being a hater and our owner's cheap. Our owner's not cheap. This to me, or he was going to, and Mike Hazen's really freaking good at his job, and said, this is a move we make. Like, this is a move that keeps us still within a shot with the Dodgers. Because
not even just the Dodgers, the NL alone, because the NL keeps getting strong.
Yeah, Cubs got better, Mets got better, so I think, and both of those teams improved with bats. Like, we are improving with pitching, which, just thinking about this rotation has to be like, whoo! Like, and the big thing based on last year's health-wise, can they stay healthy? So I'm very excited with this.
You kind of set it up on a tee for me perfectly there, because that was what we were going to segue into next. With, obviously you and Rickety Bridge bringing up, like, what do we do with Gallen? Also bringing up, like, is Montgomery good as gone right now? That was a kind of the follow-up question I had for you guys, with the fact that there's like 7, possibly even more than 7 guys that could go into spring training looking for a rotation spot. We know that guys like Corbin Burnes, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly and even I'd say Eduardo Rodriguez, with the money we're giving him, are borderline guaranteed to have those 4 spots locked down. But then it kind of leaves guys like Brandon Pfaadt, Jordan Montgomery, Ryan Nelson, and then potentially, like, I think maybe like an odd man out in the situation, but maybe somebody, depending on how he does in spring, Tommy Henry, at least, because the D-backs always like to give people a shot. They don't want to just give someone a job. So it does leave like possibly 7 to 8 guys vying for just 5 rotation spots. So I was curious what your guys' like opening day, rotation would be. Like, who gets the ball on opening day? Is it Gallen? Is it Corbin? Is it, the different mixture? Are you obviously like shipping off Jordan Montgomery somewhere? What do you end up doing with guys like Pfaadt and Nelson? So Gabe, I'm curious what your ideal 5-man, or if you have something else other than a 5-man, what your ideal rotation would be.
A 7-man rotation. Do it, you cowards. No, I think one of these guys, like I said, maybe Montgomery might end up getting shipped off. Maybe that might be news coming soon to the next few hours or days. I honestly would prefer to keep everybody and, maybe send Brian or Pfaadt down to AAA just to keep him stretched out. A lot of people are saying to keep him in the bullpen. I do think that might be a mistake, just because of the potential that they've both shown in the last couple of years. So I don't want to get rid of either of them. And as we saw last year, like, injuries happen. The Dodgers is just what I mentioned this last podcast. The Dodgers, they loaded up on starting pitchers, and all those guys didn't go past 120 innings, but that's all you needed from them when you have like 7 or 8 elite starting pitchers. Even if they give you 120 innings each, that's all that matters. You just kind of have to front load those innings, and it seems like maybe that's what the D-backs are looking to do. Like, get as many innings as you can from Corbin, from Gallen, Kelly, Erod, Montgomery, Fott, and Nelson. Like, maybe just try to get as many innings as you can from them, and then have a stronger pitching staff and even bullpen coming into the playoffs if they make it. But I don't know. I guess that would be so far my ideal would be Corbin, Gallen, probably put Erod in there just because of righty lefty matchups. Then Kelly, and then I know people are getting mad about this, but I still would have Montgomery there just because his track record has shown that he is a great pitcher. And Fod and Nelson both had ERAs, about 4.5. And I know Montgomery was at 6, but again, we've seen him be a lot better than that when he has the full spring training. So I hope that was just the case with Montgomery. He just didn't have a spring training. And if we can have that rotation, I do think that would make this team the best rotation in baseball. And I don't care what the Dodgers have. I don't care what the Yankees have. I do think this is the better rotation overall. And, this team is moving on from run scoring, which didn't win them anything last year, to run prevention. And I think that they can win a lot of games, outscoring guys, even if it's, 5-2, 5-3, they're going to win a lot of those type of games. So I do think, Hazen has one more move to make, and that would be an elite bullpen arm, because again, we can't put Fogg, we can't put Nelson in the bullpen. These guys are stretched out to be starters, and in case there's an injury, we can't just be like, all right, yeah, I know you've been, a bullpen arm for the last month or so, but you think you can get stretched out to go 7 innings tonight? That can't happen. We've seen it happen with certain guys like Dre Jameson, moving them up and down. He ended up with Tommy John. So this unfortunately isn't something that you can really do with these guys. Once they're starters, you kind of just have to leave them there unless they show that they need to be a bullpen arm. Someone like an Archie Bradley, like certain guys just will excel in that situation. Some others won't. So, yeah, for me, it would be those main 5 guys, and probably send Nelson down, maybe keep Fod up in some sort of role. Don't know what that role is. Maybe a 6-man rotation, although I know Hazen has talked about no. But early on in the season, I do think maybe in the first month we can just see that 6-man rotation just to keep these guys healthy and fresh, giving them an extra day. And then, come May, June, go back to a 5-man rotation, just depending on who's going better. And, if they get rid of Montgomery, that's an easy choice right there. You put in Fott and leave Nelson, in AAA, or again, the 6-man rotation. So I don't think Hazen is done now, especially we don't have to, pick and choose guys. Like now we have options, and I think Hazen's going to be more willing to move on from certain guys.
So pretty interesting. I was not expecting you to put in Montgomery, but you do make some good points. Obviously with him having a down year, he's probably going to, I don't think he's going to replicate the same thing he did last year. I do like the idea of the 6-man rotation, at least for the first month or two, kind of like a little extended spring. What would the word be? Extended spring battle for that position. Whoever ends up performing the worst out of them, they lose a spot, and they probably narrow it down into a 5th man, which it would kind of like you said, it would keep their arms fresher a little bit longer, so we don't have to worry about some of these guys going super long, kind of hitting their innings, not innings limit, but they're almost season high or career high in innings before we even get to the playoffs. Because we saw what that kind of did for Zach Gallen when he, in 2023 definitely didn't have as much gas left in the tank. So maybe you can kind of avoid that. But I do like, the idea of having options, Oscar said in the chat, you can never have too much pitching. That's true. And even like Gabe said, even though the Dodgers had a bunch of guys go down with injuries, and I don't think a single one of them went over 160, 170 innings, just because they had that many bodies, that many guys that were able to step up and all that. It's you can never have a bad you can never have too many MLB-ready starting pitchers, and I think that's at least what the D-backs are building towards. But Brandon, kind of same thing to you. Are you in the same boat as Gabe, where you would have those same 5, potentially 6 for your rotation, or does your starting rotation come opening day look a little bit different than his?
Well, keep in mind, April, you get a 28-man roster, not a 26. So the 6-man rotation is actually a good idea because you can still have another arm in the bullpen. So I don't hate the idea in the month of April them doing a 6-man rotation just to limit these guys early on, and then you can have that way they can pitch deep into games come July, August, September. But my personal rotation: Gallen, Burnes, Kelly, Erod, Fott. You trade Jordan Montgomery. Probably try to include a top prospect to see if you can get a actual closer. I get we have Justin Martinez. I just feel the team is not ready to give him the closer role full time. So I still think we need an actual closer, whether that's trading for Johan Duran, AZ Bubba, there with the suggestion. And I know the Cardinals said they aren't trading him, but I still want them to see about getting Ryan Helsey from the Cardinals. That's the big one for me. I'm just personally done with Jordan Montgomery. Getting what he's paid, he literally would have to have like a 3.5 ERA. And I don't think that's who he is. I think what we saw with the Rangers was that flash in the pan. That's because if you look back, him with the Cardinals was okay. Like, he was an average pitcher. Him with the Yankees, he was an average pitcher. He is not a $20 million, $25 million starting pitcher.
He's actually had a sub, or at least he's at a 3 or sub 350 ERA in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the last 7 seasons. Obviously last year with the 623, and then 2020 when he was a Yankee, he had a 369. So he's actually been pretty consistent keeping it in, at least the under 4 ERA.
That's why I mentioned, like, for me, it just, his past has shown that that's the type of guy he is, like a 3.5 guy. So that's why I would rather have him maybe just start off, see what you can get out of these guys early on. Like I said, maybe at some point in the next few days, there will be a trade for Montgomery and maybe a top prospect going somewhere else just so they can, actually get something in return. Because as of right now, nobody's going to trade for Montgomery. Just a 1-for-1, doesn't matter who he is. So it would have to be a top prospect. And I think it's going to hurt a lot of us, to see a certain name go get sent somewhere else. But we just have to be ready for it. And we just have to realize that we have, 2 guys who end up in the top 5 of Cy Youngs, year after year after year that they've been in the league. I mean, they both got drafted in the same draft class in 2016, although they were late picks. So I think Gallen was in the 3rd round, Burnes was in the 4th round, and they both turned into elite pitchers. So, we just have to see what we have with these 2 guys, the top 1-2 guys. And then, I mean, even if you're talking about a 6 games in 7 days that we have throughout the season, like, if we start off with Burnes, Gallen, and Kelly, can you imagine that being, the 1, 2, 3 for that starting weekend, and then the next weekend, and it's just going to be absolutely nuts seeing this pitching. I don't think we've ever seen pitching this good here.
My expectations for the season changed drastically this morning. I was like, okay, so this is not a retooling year. To me, you don't spend this money if you're retooling, as Mike Hazen likes to say. They still think that their window is open, and I think it is too, because as we saw last year, literally this was the best offense in MLB. Didn't make the playoffs. So they're like, okay, so we're going to go and we're going to do run prevention, which not a lot of teams, like nowadays, not a lot of people do. Like, everyone's just like, okay, let's score 8, 9 runs a game. I'm like, what if your offense gives your pitching gives up 10 to 11 runs a game. It doesn't matter if you have the best offense in Major League Baseball. So I love this signing. Corbin Burnes did not even cross my mind because I'm like, it didn't make sense. I'm like, if they're wanting to sign Gallen to a similar deal, why would they sign another one? Like, that's why I didn't even think about it. But this also proves to me that Ken Kendrick is willing to part with his money, and Mike Hazen is really freaking good at his job.
Yeah, there is a potential that, I don't want to fully hold out hope that we don't re-sign Gallen. Maybe, like, Brandon said, maybe this is a sign that they are willing to, at least spend some of that money, because again, it's not something that I don't think any of us were expecting. And I think, to your point, this is definitely putting the retooling or the, maybe they're going to try to punt on 2025 and build towards 2026 and afterwards. It does not feel like that at all. It feels like they're definitely, at least trying to go full throttle and, again, keep up with the rest of the NL, especially NL West. So, like, the Dodgers just re-signed Teoscar Hernandez, so, like, they're going to be even more like their offense is just going to be probably the same, if not better, than it was. So there's definitely some other teams that are going to be bolstering, and like Gabe said, they're going after run prevention, and some of these guys like Corbin Burnes, again, since 2020, he's been one of the best, if not the best, pitchers in baseball, at least going off of some of these, stats. I know Sierra and like FIP, I think FIP is a little bit more accurate than ERA sometimes, because it does take into account some more other like aspects other than just ERA, because sometimes ERA can be a big lie. But I'm really happy with the signing. I did want to give a quick shout out to a bunch of people in the chat. Obviously, Rickety Bridge, appreciate you. Bubba, I like it. It's not San Diego, but I'll always enjoy a good old meme where anytime we're making fun of a city, I'm just kidding, we get made fun of the most, so we got to dish it out whenever we can. Ethan Squire, honestly, same. Fastest I've done a double take after waking up. I had to do the same. My eyes weren't fully awake when I saw like all the Corbin Burnes, and kind of like Brandon said earlier, I saw the news and I was like, what is this, speculation? Are they potentially trying to sign him? Are they going after him? But then I saw the Passan tweet and I'm like, oh my God, it's real. Like, it's actually real. It's not like Santa Claus where he's just a figment of our imagination. He's real. Josh, our wonderful producer who made our fire thumbnail as well. I always appreciate you stopping by, sir. Yeah, Gabe's dog wanted to make him get up and said, turn on the TV, any channel, get the news. Hans Walker, to your point, you do make like you and Brandon are on the same page. You should definitely give or trust Hazen a little bit more. He's got Prime Marte for the next couple of years, and that's another thing that we're going to look back on, and probably in 5-6 years when we have like articles that are like, oh, Mike Hazen's best free agent signings or best like contracts. Marte and Corbin Carroll are probably going to be
way underpaid. He's so underpaid.
For what he's producing on the field, he is way underpaid. Like we said earlier, Oscar, you can never have too much pitching. Absolute facts. And then Ethan, welcome on in, Ethan. Always good to see you here. Good morning. I know that was probably some pretty shocking news to you as it was to us. And then, Monty gone in the next 48 hours. We talked about him a little bit. And then Brandon did also mention this in our group chat. And also we talked about it a little bit more. Brandon, do you want to kind of break down or at least like explain a little bit of what the guy that is rumored or potentially Alec Thomas's brother, kind of some of the things that he was talking about in that Twitter Spaces and all that? Because there were some news regarding that a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you were in that Twitter Spaces that was started by Mitch Verreldis of AZ Sports. He had Aaron Hughes on, who's likes a lot of our stuff, works with SI. He also does a lot of great stuff. But no, someone came in, claims to be the younger brother of our young king, Alec Thomas. And basically he said, Alec is not being traded. Jake is not being traded. This Corbin Burnes signing literally only happened within the last 48 hours. Jordan Montgomery will probably be traded within the next 48 hours. And they are not going to go sign another player for DH because they're going to be putting Lourdes as basically their full-time DH, which I don't know why that never crossed my mind. I don't think it's a bad sign because, yes, he has a good arm in the outfield, but in terms of athletic ability, Jake in left, Alec in center, Corbin in right. Like that outfield is like good luck trying to get that ball to touch the ground. If you hit that thing high in the air, it's going to be caught by one of those three. Like I know Alec isn't the fastest, but he gets every ball. Like we've said it so many times. Like I've lost count. The way he reads the ball off the bat is truly. He will win a Gold Glove, in my opinion. If
he would have if Brenton Doyle didn't have the insane year he did for the Rockies in 23.
Well, I think he would have had a shot last year had he not missed a lot of time. Yeah, and then Josh, like route running is because there's a lot of guys that are fast and they don't take the right route, but they're so athletic that they make up for it. But I'm like, if they take the right route, they'll be just standing there waiting for the ball.
Yeah, I think that's one of the bigger knocks against Gurriel, that he would just make these amazing plays, and then you see the replay, and he's just like, he looks like everybody's MLB player, just like MLB The Show player, just like spinning around, and he makes the play eventually. Like, I think Jake is a little bit better at that. He takes better routes. Just not in center. I think that's the main issue with him in center. It's just he's a little more. I mean, it's hard. Center field is really hard, especially at Chase with the overhangs and everything. It's a hard place to play center, and Alec just does it beautifully. So I do honestly trust Jake more in left than Gurriel. So it does turn into the no-fly zone outfield suddenly again. And if you have Gurriel as the primary DH, have him out there every once in a while. Have, just depending on righty-lefty matchups, have him and Gurriel trade the DH and left field spot. I do think this could work for this team to where they don't really have to go out and spend for another bat, although I would have preferred it. But this way, again, there's no hard conversations about who to move on from.
They don't need to go make a big time splash at DH. Like, they could probably go get someone that can also play in the field as well. Like, I have a feeling that Lourdes won't be like 100% full-time DH, like Gabe was saying. I could see that the outfield rotation is the 3 outfields and then DH. Or to get Ketel off his feet, put Ketel at D. Like, they could not do that last year with Grichuk and Jock. Like, it was always one of them. So now maybe they want to give Ketel a couple of days off on his feet, just have him be DH. And I know Corbin's fast, and we've seen him in center. Playing center field is not, just because you're fast does not mean you can play center field. It is like, it's just it's a different beat. You have so much more ground to cover.
Plus, I feel like he's made a lot of decent strides in right field. I know last year there's a few plays he made. I think one that I specifically remember was in the Miami series in Miami. Made a nice diving play that he even credited Dave McKay and the outfield work and like them working on their routes, kind of bringing up what you guys were talking about earlier with the routes as being a big thing. So I would rather leave him in right field, honestly, too, just because he's getting more comfortable there, and I think he's being able to get a better reads off the ball because the corner positions are way different, and the way the ball reacts off the bat is way different than in center field.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't have the numbers to back this up, but I bet if we look, and once they put Corbin like full time in right field, how much did his bat improve? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we look in like once they because they tried him in center, and it's not that he's awful in center. I just feel like he's better in right.
I'd be curious about what you're talking about maybe getting another outfield type guy that can DH and obviously play the outfield, but we don't have a guy that can cover, like you said, Marte right now, except Vargas, and I don't trust that Vargas is going to be on this team much longer. So I do think maybe a guy like Lawler specifically. Yeah, I was going to mention Lawler. Like, he could just have a good spring training. I mean, he did decent in the Dominican League. Like, it's about time he gets a true, real call up for this team. So I can see him, and I guess Hazen as well, just riding out with the guys that they have. Again, they have enough pitching so far that they can get away with not scoring, 11, 15 runs like they did last year. Like a lot of those, if you go back and look at those game logs, it's like 15 to 7 or 8. It's not a lot of 15 to 1s, 15 to 2s. And I do think this team, um, if they can get around, half of that, they're still fine. They're still in good place. Again, I do think the main issue would be right now the bullpen. Get a Ryan Housley or someone, a guy that can make this bullpen a lot better. So then they're not having to rely on this offense to carry them like they did last year, because when the bullpen would come in, then suddenly the offense would have to like turn it on again.
It's like watching like this. Like I
Yeah,
can't watch.
and last year when we criticized a few times about like them being the early backs, and then they would just get completely shut out. 5 runs in the first, second nothing, third, fourth,
Lay
fifth,
down.
sixth, seventh, and then the eighth finally, they'd bring in a bullpen arm. They're down. Suddenly it's 7-5, and then they turn it on and they win the game 10-7 or something like that. And like we don't want to see that. We want to be able to feel more sure of this team. If it's 5-1, 5-2. I do feel better coming into the 7th and 8th and 9th inning if we have, especially a deeper, a guy that can go in a little bit deeper like Burnes or Gallen, but also having guys in that bullpen who can throw 95 plus, who can get the swing and miss they might need later on.
Yes, I know you even mentioned it before, but even seeing like Dre Jameson's going to be coming back, and I know that sometimes guys coming back from Tommy John don't have the same stuff, but then we've also seen it before where a guy like Daniel Hudson who had 2 Tommy Johns, it feels like this after the second Tommy John he was an even better pitcher. Like I know he went from being like a starter to a reliever, but it seemed like he was throwing harder. It seemed like he was just like being able to stay more consistent. So that's why like maybe he has a little bit of a dip, but if Dre can be kind of like back to what he was, welcome in baseball, Chad. Damn right, Dbacks fans, we are up. We are so back. We have never been more back. Snakes are so alive. Yeah, Saul Frank does come back too, but he's definitely like, and I know he's a little more of a specialist. I know he, as long as he deleted FanDuel from his phone, we should be fine. But I think that Dre coming back will be pretty huge. Obviously, he'll need a little bit more time. Who knows? Maybe Landon Sims has a pretty impressive spring training. I don't want to just rely fully on the guys we have in house. I would like a Ryan Helsley. I know there's some rumors about like Kirby Yates. I would only want Kirby Yates as like a 7th, maybe 8th inning guy at most on a day where maybe Puck or Martinez aren't available. Just because with our luck, older relievers like that don't have too much stuff on their fastball, don't have the best track record here. So I'd still rather, get a guy like Helsley, or if the D-backs are still willing to keep the checkbook open, go give some money to Tanner Scott. Give him a few years. You can at least that way you don't have to worry about because Helsley will be a free agent again. So we're going to be back in the same exact spot next year thinking about like, cool, what other guy can we put in here in the bullpen to, lock it down. We still got Puck for at least 2 more years in 2025, 2026. Get Tanner Scott on like a 2, 3, maybe even 4-year deal. I don't know exactly what he's looking for, but then we don't have to worry about like him walking after 1 year. Martinez is still on his rookie contract. If Dre Jameson can come back strong, he's still pretty solid. Like the D-backs could potentially have a bullpen where they don't need to worry about rebuilding every single year and having to add pieces, whether it be a trade or not. Like there are some options out there, and who knows, maybe they get Tanner Scott and trade for Ryan Helsley. Like I believe Brandon mentioned in our thing that the person that was claiming to be Alec Thomas's bro was saying that Blaze could be traded. Who knows? Maybe they do that to bring in another arm. I wouldn't be opposed at all. And I like how I'm pulling a full 180. I'm going into we're going to be just riding with what we got in the system. We're not going to be doing anything to no Hazen, do all the signings, all the trades, trade for this guy, sign this guy, do this. Like I'm okay with it.
I mean, the window's open now. Like we can't just keep hoarding these prospects and hoping to be able to compete with the Dodgers for the next 10 years. Like their guys are locked up for the next 10 years or so. And so are the Mets. Like all these other teams have their guys ready and locked and ready to go. And they're on their major leagues. We can't just be like, oh, we'll see what Lawlerson's into. We'll see what Sims, what Dre. We have a lot of guys in the system that I think could be great, but we don't know until they're in AAA and into the winter when they're in the majors, and we have to supplement these guys as well. Like look at the Orioles. The Orioles rebuilt, but then they just can't do anything because they don't spend. I mean, I know they got Corbin Burnes, but they don't have Corbin Burnes anymore. And what are they going to do next year? Like this, the Orioles got significantly worse losing out on Corbin Burnes now. So they have a lot of guys in their system that look exactly the same, but you can trade one of those white fluffy haired guys, and get a few really good players for them. But again, we have to not be as precious with our prospects if we have ready-made major league talent available that we can go out and get and compete, especially with guys like the Dodgers, because this team cannot outspend the Dodgers. They can't outspend even the Giants and the Padres. They can't do that. So they have to work with what they have. And I do think right now they have a good team. And I like that you mentioned Dre. With the Tommy John, usually the average of miles per hour that they gain is about 2 miles an hour. He was already throwing 96. So can you imagine having Dre Jameson throw 98 consistently in that bullpen, especially with his personality, his attitude? I mean, he could be very dangerous. But I don't know if he would be ready this year just because, again, they struggle with command their first year. So it would just depend on how everyone looks. And I do think as of right now, we're kind of in a waiting game with a lot of this bullpen and the actual starters, like our hitters. Like, what can they give us? Because again, Alec Thomas is going to be healthy. What he's going to give us? Is Jake going to regress? Because he regressed pretty badly in September last year. And Corbin, he regressed last year. Then he was great. Then he regressed again. We're going to get out of these guys. So hopefully, once we get closer to spring training, we can see these guys, make better contact, get harder hits, and then we won't have to think about so much about like losing Peterson, losing Walker, losing Newman and Grichuk. Like we probably could make do with what we have now.
With the since we're kind of still talking about the bullpen, there was one name that I saw yesterday in one of the Discords we're in that I wanted to bring up on the show. That honestly kind of they kind of talked me into. I think their Discord name was Tusk. So Tusk, shout out for the idea. One of the names they brought up was Jeff Hoffman. I know it's not the Tanner Scott and all that, but some pretty solid numbers. He does throw pretty hard. He had some I think some decent success with the Phillies last year, and just seeing, I'm looking up his stats right now so I can actually get. So last year he had a 2.0 WAR. He had a 2.17 ERA, a WHIP under 1 in 66 and a third innings pitched with 89 strikeouts. And he was an all-star, so really solid. He was in Colorado for the first 5 years of his career before spending 2 years in Cincinnati before he wound up on the Phillies. And in 2023, he had a 2.41 ERA, and then 2024 he had 2.17 ERA. And I believe he is only he's 31 years old, about to turn 32, looks like in the next week or so. So happy early birthday, Jeff Hoffman. Maybe they'll give you a contract as a nice present. But he is a name that I was also kind of a little bit interested in, especially because you don't see too many bullpen guys put up WAR like that. And then he's had 3.9 WAR in his last 2 years combined. So that would be an interesting arm that might not be as flashy as a Tanner Scott, but could potentially be a little bit cheaper because I believe he is a little bit older than Tanner Scott. So that is obviously Tanner Scott he's only a year, maybe about to be 2 years older than Tanner Scott. And like I said, with guys putting up WAR in the bullpen, Tanner Scott had a 4 WAR last year. He had a 1.75 ERA and a little bit of a WHIP. I know he has a little bit more of a walk issue. But Jeff Hoffman in 6 innings less struck out more guys than Tanner Scott. So it's definitely one of those names where, maybe the D-backs, try to pivot towards a guy like that, get him on a 2-3 year deal that could be a little bit cheaper than what, Tanner Scott might command.
I mean, it makes sense because of who our new pitching coach is. Came from the Phillies, worked with Jeff Hoffman. So continue to go ahead and work with him. That one is not a bad one because based on his age, it's probably 2-year deal with a player option for that 3rd year, potentially. So I don't hate that idea, Jeff Hoffman. We just need more high leverage guys. I don't know if we necessarily need another closer, a solid closer. I think if we get 1 or 2 more high leverage guys, then you don't have to worry about using Puck and J-Mart every single game in high leverage situations. You can really use those two in the 8th and 9th to shut it down. Say you're down 1 or 2 runs or you're tied there late in the game. you can use some of these other high leverage arms. Yeah, I brought this up to you guys a couple of weeks ago.
I wouldn't be opposed, but if the rumors about like Gurriel being the DH are true, I think that's probably like not going to happen. And plus, I think with Spencer Torkelson, I think he still has a few options available. He's still on a rookie deal. And I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. Bring the ASU legend home. Let him, maybe a change of scenery will be good. But I don't necessarily see the. I mean, again, I have been proven wrong before, but it doesn't seem like there would be too much, especially with Pavin Smith potentially going to be sharing a few games at first base if Naylor's, sitting. There's not really too many spots for Torkelson to play in the field if they don't want to DH him, but I wouldn't be opposed. I love ASU players whenever they come to the D-backs. So honestly, I think this was definitely a move that, like, again, we were planning on doing our normally scheduled podcast tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening, talking about, I think the biggest news was obviously Jock walking to the Rangers and Kirby Yates, which potentially still going to be doing a show tomorrow, because we wanted to keep this like mostly like Corbin Burnes related and all that. But again, still some news that I imagine a lot of us, either whether you were awake for the news when it happened and couldn't get some sleep because you were too excited, or you woke up to a little bit of a late Christmas present. I guess Santa just got a flat tire on the way. Had to change out Rudolph's red nose, and that's why he got a little bit late here to giving us this present. But any gentlemen, any kind of final thoughts? Obviously, I know we touched on a lot here. Obviously, Corbin Burnes, what this could mean for the rotation, other guys in the rotation, and their potential upcoming contract things. But any maybe final thoughts on the situation that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, the Diamondbacks have now joined the atomic age of nuclear weapons. Like before, we were talking about them, fighting with sticks and stones, but they're right there, with nuclear warheads, just like the Dodgers and Mets, Padres, and everyone else. So the landscape of the NL has completely changed, and so has the AL. Like Oscar said in the comments, everything's getting easier for the Yankees. So as of right now, it seems to be whoever in the NL that makes it out alive, and the Yankees. So be prepared to see the Yankees versus whoever, maybe the D-backs in the playoffs or in the World Series. I mean, like, again, pitching wins championships, and we have a whole lot of it right now. So hopefully this team is comes out the gates hot, because those September days, they might keep this team out of the playoffs again. So hopefully they can get to a better start early on, and then they can win maybe closer to 100 games next season, and then they could be in better position to make the playoffs and maybe even get home field advantage.
That would be absolute icing on the cake, and what a turnaround, especially because I will make merch out of it. I tweeted like in 2020, mostly as a joke, but kind of like looking at what the D-backs were building in their farm. I was like, D-backs 2025 World Series champion, baby, book it. And hey man, if it happens, I'm getting a shirt for each and every one of you guys. I'm making it happen because I'm never going to shut up about it. And I would love that. If obviously the home field advantage in 2023, people talked about like, oh, like this is pointless. What's the point of regular season baseball if you're just going to get a break? And last year, the number one teams proved that it didn't matter. Like they were like, hey, it does help. So it's definitely something that I think if the Diamondbacks can possibly shoot for. I love John Boy, but that take still pisses me off. But it's definitely one of those where I know it's going to be tough with the Dodgers. Obviously, they're probably going to be the favorite to get that number one seed. But if we can somehow find a way to have our pitching kind of like neutralize a lot of the offense in not just our division, but the NL alone, man, that would be chef's kiss and beautiful. But Brandon, what are maybe some final thoughts? Anything that even responding to something that Gabe said, or just like anything that you wanted to touch on before we get out of here?
By the way, Sal, it's at 85.5. So I don't know if I feel comfortable at taking that over of 86 right now because of the bullpen. But no, we'll see. To be honest, one thing I forgot to bring up with Dre, I think they should start him in Reno, just to get his bearings back after coming back from Tommy John, and then maybe bring him up in like May or June for the bullpen, because Dre is actually faster than Corbin, by the way, y'all. I don't know if everyone knew that. They had a race, and Dre Jameson beat Corbin Carroll. So
that story is going to turn into this diner makes Coke the old-fashioned way in like a year or so, because we're just going to bring it up every single chance.
Yeah, but this signing, I'm still like, I am just like, I can't believe this happened, that they signed Corbin freaking Burnes. We now have 2 potential Cy Youngs in our starting rotation. Just trade Jordan Montgomery. Like, just freaking do it, Mike Hazen. That's all I got.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait to see. Obviously, we're 3 days away roughly from, I guess, Hazen's prime of cooking, where he likes to do a lot of his deals. So maybe we'll see a few moves get made. And if we do, you guys know exactly where to be. Here, Dbacks Dispatch, covering the D-backs all season. And, trying to do emergency pods, obviously, whenever our schedules, allow it. But if there is any other bigger news, you guys know exactly where to be right here. Again, make sure you guys like the video. It really does help out. Join the Discord as well, again, to kind of keep in touch outside of the live shows, sharing links. We did just add a new channel for like prospect talk. So I know for people that follow a little bit more minor league stuff, because I'm always down to learn more about, prospects and minor leagues, guys like that. Or if there's, guys like Rickety that's still trying to, dive into the baseball a little bit more, get more familiarized. It's a great place for it. And then again, check out AZ Snake Pit for a bunch of articles. There is one up on Corbin Burnes, so if you guys wanted to go get your thoughts on there, kind of interact with some of the community over there, because there's a lot of great people over there. Definitely recommend that. But again, in the meantime, we will see you next time, hopefully on another emergency pod, or at least just a regularly scheduled Dbacks Dispatch pod. Again, Brett, I've been Brett, my boy Brandon, my other boy Gabe. We appreciate each and every single one of you guys, and we will see you next time.
It's the Dbacks Dispatch. Let's go. Yeah, brings Red Game, Josh on the floor. West Coast vibes, catch us on the air. Home running dogs, diamond gems we share. Brandon was a stat, sees the man with a plan. Red braces down, tells it like it is, man. Gabs on fire, brings the heat every time. Josh on the mix, keep the beat so prime. I got the insights every week's a hit. Tune in, Dbacks Dispatch, this is it. Now we rollin'. Dbacks Dispatch, yeah. Talk to Brandon, Brandon, Gabe, this is Big Catch. Josh on the mix, he make the beats. West Coast vibe, got the G fucking the bad. The home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. Dbacks Dispatch, we here to stay. Yeah, catch us every week, we bring a play by tour. We got the home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. Dbacks Dispatch, we here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring a play by tour.